I'm Venerable. I'm Lamsal, by the way. Just didn't introduce myself to everyone. First of all, I just wanted to rejoice that you're all here. I know that in my high school, I didn't have this kind of education where we had this exposure to religions of any kind, really. Let alone, I mean, Australia, where I grew up, was largely a Christian country. So branching out and learning about other religions wasn't really part of what I grew up with. So I wanted to talk today about the importance of having, one, this kind of exposure, but also about having an ethical framework in our lives. Because I found that there's a lot of important decision-making going on in this time of life. And if there isn't an explicit framework that you're using in your life, which often some form of religion can provide, then there might not necessarily be some guidelines about what decisions do I make, what track am I going in life, how am I understanding how I relate to myself or how I relate to others. And then without that ethical framework, then we can make sometimes some poor decisions and end up doing things that we regret, and not necessarily have a clear path of knowing where we're heading in life. And so this is kind of one of the reasons that attracted me to Buddhism, was finding an ethical framework, some kind of tool that I could kind of use to understand the world that I lived in, and also how to relate to myself and others. Because, I don't know, the way that, one of the ways I was raised was, find the partner, get a career, achieve, and that will be the way to happiness. And, get a good grade in school and find the university course or the college course that will kind of get a good reputation and kind of meander along life that way. And I don't know about you, but I found that way to be unfulfilling. And I kind of was just moving along with kind of that was the way to do things. But I quickly found it not so satisfying. Whereas through studying, finding an ethical framework to live my life through Buddhism, but that's not necessarily, it can be through any religion, or it can be through any philosophy, or just some way to inform how we want to be in the world and what vision we want to accomplish in our life. So I don't want to relate to others in terms of competing with them to try and achieve, the next promotion or the best score in the test, or to have that kind of me versus everyone else relationship. Whereas through the teachings of the Buddha and in most religions, is there to relate to others through a framework of kindness and appreciation and gratitude, that we're all interdependent, that we don't exist in isolation from each other, and that we benefit so much from what everyone else does in the world. Someone drove you up here, someone helped grow the food that you ate for breakfast, helped grow the food that you're going to eat now for lunch. As I mentioned to some of the people I was guiding, Venerable Yeshe made the tables that you're eating on. There's just so much kindness and interdependence that we're in, that we live within. But without, I wouldn't have come to see that on my own. Maybe you have, which is wonderful. But without some, for me, the framework of the Buddha's teachings, but just any philosophy or some framework, I wouldn't have seen that, and I wouldn't have been able to appreciate that and then incorporate that in terms of, I see I've received this kindness, and then I want to return that kindness and act in that way. And I think it's important, looking back on, it's not so far away of me being where you are in your time of life. That how do I find a way that I'm happy with myself, have a level of self-confidence and self-esteem, that I know that what actions I do with my body, speech, and my mind, I feel a sense of integrity, that I'm not just following along with the crowd, just doing what everyone else is doing, but that I have some idea of a moral compass. Because one of the teachings of the Buddha is that our actions have an ethical dimension. What we do matters. So, and that's something to really take a joy in, because it means that we can create the conditions for our own happiness in the future by choosing wise ways to live in the world. So I rejoice that you're here joining us and coming in and inquisitive, and please ask as many questions as you can while we're over lunch, and it's a joy to have you here.